One. Hello, hello. You are joined here for Flower Hour. I'm joined with another contestant of the All African Colours England competition, Frankie Stewart. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm really good. It's been a long day, but most
Yeah,
importantly, I'm here able to have a conversation with someone like yourself. The background looks good. You know,
thank you.
you look good. You look fabulous. You got everything on.
Yeah, you've got to pull it all out the bag every now and then.
I feel quite basic with my plain white background, but hopefully the conversation is all about you, so you're the star of the show.
No, you've got to get yourself one of these.
No, I do actually, but I actually don't. Yeah, I actually could do with one of those actually. But my first question has got to be to you. Introduce yourself so everyone knows who you are.
All right. Hi, I'm Frankie Stewart. I'm one of the Miss All African Colours England finalists. I'm 20 years old and I'm currently living in South London.
Perfect. And a little bit more about why did you join the contest and what inspired you, I suppose, to apply for the contest?
Well, I have been doing pageants for the past 2 years, and from the offset of starting these pageants, Miss England has always been the goal and entering Miss England. So for 2 years, I've been entering different competitions to just build up my confidence and understand a little bit what it's about. And now I entered this year because I felt like it was just time to just bite the bullet and just jump headfirst in. So I contacted Miss England. I said, hey, do you have any heats going at the moment? This was during the first lockdown, so I was a bit apprehensive whether or not they would still be running the competition. And sure enough, they were. And I was really happy with that. And then they told me about All African Colours heat, and I thought, well, I've got to represent my women of colour, and I do feel like that this heat is history in the making. The fact that it is the first Miss England heat specifically for women of colour it's literally revolutionary. It's history happening right now. So I thought I can't miss that opportunity to be part of something so big, and it's so much more than myself.
And do you, in any way, shape, or form, do you feel like it's a bittersweet moment, as in the moment has finally come, but why wasn't the moment ever here before that? Why is the opportunity
Absolutely.
now
No,
only presented?
yeah, I've definitely had those questions asked to me before as well, and it is bittersweet in the sense that why do we even need a heat just for women of colour? That's kind of unfortunate that we need a heat specifically for us, but at the same time, we're at a point where we need to be celebrating women of colour and giving them their own platform. And then once that's happened, then we can integrate into the more mainstream heats, because unfortunately, when you look through the heats and the women that enter, it is a large majority white girls and white women, and that's not to take anything away from them. They are all worthy and they are all beautiful and all deserve to have these opportunities. But I do feel that women of colour are let's say dissuaded from entering these kinds of competitions because of a stigma that surrounds them that is no longer in place. There's no longer a bias towards white women within beauty competitions or competitions like Miss England or pageants in general. I truly believe that there isn't that racism anymore. We'll call it what it is. There isn't that racism anymore, but the stigma sticks. And so women of colour think, oh, I'm not going to enter it, it's not for me, it's not a space for me. So this heat does give us that chance to say, look, this is a space for women of colour, and hopefully will encourage more women of colour in the future to enter normal heats in Miss England and other beauty competitions and pageants.
I think that's actually a very valid point. I can never tell you the one time I have seen someone that is, of color enter a pageant, except like the Miss Worlds. And the only reason,
Yeah,
the only time I remember that was when Miss Nigeria was more excited at another girl winning than her own self. And that blew up on the internet. And I think
yeah.
pageants and competitions, and they got like popularity, like good popularity for such a long time. But I know there's a negative side associated with, being in pageants and so much more. And you and I spoke about it. We spoke about there's the idea that it comes from just people like Honey Boo Boo, or there's these mothers pushing children into it. You've been doing pageants for a while. So could you tell me a little bit more about your first pageant And what's life been like when you've been part of pageants for such a long time?
Of course. So I entered my first pageant at 17 and competed at 18. This was because I'd finally moved out. So finally, like, oh, I couldn't wait to get out. No, I've got great parents, and that wasn't it. I just had moved out. I'd moved to uni, and I was just interested in pageantry. I had been for as long as I can remember, watching Miss World, watching Miss Universe, and my mum never let me enter any pageants because one, they can be expensive, and they do appear to be elitist when they're not. It's just about glamour and beauty, or it can be about glamour and beauty, so it appears elitist. So my mum didn't want me to enter, and then also you have the likes of Toddlers and Tiaras and Honey Boo Boo that are misrepresenting pageants and implying that it's all about glitz, and that's just one category, one genre of pageant is glitz pageants. That is one small, not minority, but small population of pageants are like that, whereas the ones I've been entering and then what I've taken part in, it's all about you becoming a role model and the best version of yourself that you can be, inside and out. So I entered Miss Teen Galaxy 2018, and I competed. I dove head first. Like, I couldn't tell you, I couldn't put it in any other way. I just jumped straight in. It is one of the bigger pageants in the UK. But just as a national level, it is one of the bigger ones in the UK. And there were like 36 girls competing, I think, or 40 odd, something like that. And it was scary, it was terrifying, but it was the most exhilarating thing that I had ever done. Like, I've been on roller coasters, been in haunted houses, but this was just, the adrenaline was through the roof. And then straight after I got off that stage, I got bitten by what they call the pageant bug, and from then on, the rest is history. I've just entered pageant after pageant after pageant. I love it so much because it really does just give women a space to embrace who they want to be and who they are, and why not get dressed up and be the most prettiest woman you feel you are, because it's all about feeling, it's all about you and how you want to perceive yourself. And that's really what pageants have become. Of course, they were born out of a misogynist, sexist place, but women have reclaimed the pageant space, and it is all about uplifting and encouraging each other and becoming the role models of tomorrow, essentially, together as a team rather than as an individual.
And following on from that last point you said about being role models, who's your role model? I'd love to know.
I always find that a quite tricky question to answer, because I find inspiration in so many different people, and almost every person I meet I'm inspired by, and there's something in everyone. So I would say at the moment, or let's just say most impact on myself, one would be Ashley Graham, the American plus size model. I remember being about 16 and watching her on America's Next Top Model as a judge, and she completely changed the narrative. She completely was like, look, I believe that big girls are beautiful, and she just enforced it so vocally that it couldn't be ignored.
Yeah.
So I do remember being young and self-conscious and bullied for my weight, and then here comes Ashley Graham just being an absolute icon, and it did inspire me to embrace myself and my curves a bit more, and instead of constantly trying to change myself, just accept and love who I am and the body I've been given. I should be grateful for the fact that I have a healthy body and not be pressured by society to look a certain way when I'm completely functional and completely healthy. And then secondly, I would say Jamila Jamil, the British actress, mostly because she has used her platform to advocate for some really important causes, and has
Yes.
even started her own like charity / community space where she uplifts and encourages other charities and organisations. So both of them have used their platforms for amazing things. Of course, Ashley Graham has her podcast, Pretty Big Deal. I'm a big fan of that podcast, where she brings on a new amazing woman each week, and again, so many women to be inspired by. It's really difficult to just have one role model.
No, I can imagine. As you said, you're inspired by so many people around you, but it's great because whenever I think about Ashley Graham, I think about a lot of the things that she's done. And when I think about it consciously, even as a guy, she was the first plus size woman that I had seen that hit mainstream TV. Was it before Tyra Banks? Was Tyra Banks considered plus size or not? Forgive my naivety.
Tyra Banks wasn't considered plus size, but she was shorter than the average model or supermodel of her day. I think she is below 5'10", so she's considered petite, even though she's literally average size.
Yeah.
There's a lot of indiscrepancies within that industry that do need addressing and do need changing as soon as possible, which is what I am passionate about doing.
And you speak so much about self-love, and it's so beautiful to hear that you've accepted the body you were given, the body you were born with. And I think that's something not many people are usually happy around. We're always trying to change ourselves. And I remember there was a quote that said, in a society that profits off your insecurity, to love yourself is a rebellious act. Just how important has it been to love yourself, and to what is it like practicing self-love? Could you take me through how you perform your self-love?
So I would say self-love is completely a personal journey. It is going to be different for everyone who is taking that journey. And I love that quote that you've just said, because you're so right. Like, this is a society that profits off of our insecurities and prize on our insecurities in the hopes that we'll fall for the next big fad or the next thing. And it's just, for me, the first step is words of affirmation and appreciating the things that you do have, because no matter how low your self-esteem may be, there is always something to be grateful for. There is always something to be appreciative of. And yes, I would say that I would put it, I'm getting tongue-tied. I would put it in the words of, it's a journey, because for me, I'm still on that journey, and practicing self-love, it's got its ups and it's got its downs. I do not love myself every day, as unfortunate as it sounds, and most women don't. So it's about reminding yourselves of those days that you do love yourself. Why did you love yourself that day? And you write it down. So I personally, I'm not a journalist, but people who journal have found a great tool to, you know, reflect on back when they were feeling good. Oh, okay, so this is why, and this is how. And it's completely a personal journey, and it's got a lot of ups and a lot of downs, and I'm still on that journey, and I'm finding new ways I love myself every single day, and sometimes new insecurities every day. And it's I would say I'm just self-aware of my insecurities, and I choose to ignore them. So there's plenty of things I could point out to you right now that I'm not happy about with my body, but I decided that I don't want to be affected by it anymore, so I'm not. And there are days I am affected by it, but I just remind myself that I'm healthy and I'm happy and I should be grateful, and that is the bottom line for me.
As you said, being on that journey, it's not a destination, it's a journey. So what was it like at the beginning of that journey? Could you take me through, I suppose, those memories and those feelings? Because you said in school you were bullied, and for some aspects your weight. So that's a very personal thing. So first of all, I've got to say thank you for sharing that with me. That's not easy for anyone to share with. Because it's interesting. I was bullied for being tall. I was bullied for having big lips. I was bullied for all sorts. And then as I got older, I realized the things people were insecure about, now society wants it. So everybody wants
and then I was a friend anyway. And
Yeah.
so when you realize that the power of the fashion industry and the media have over you,
Yes.
then they don't have that power anymore. And that's where it started with me, is when I became really conscious of the media's influence.
Yeah.
And I decided to separate myself from that. So like growing up, so yeah, I got bullied quite a lot, and it was, like you said, for a multitude of things. I didn't help myself because I'm a Sagittarius, okay? I can't help
Listen, I don't know anything
it.
about astrology. I'm not astrology deterministic, so you got to explain that to me.
Anyone who's Sag will get it, okay? We're a fire sign. I'm not always sure of myself, but I always pretend I am. So growing up, yes, I got bullied a tremendous amount. It didn't help that I went to a private school. Sorry, just because I was thinking about your TED talk that you've done, and I know when you mentioned that you'd asked to go to a private school, those were the exact reasons I was at a private school, was because although my parents couldn't afford it, my grandparents forked out for it, because I was in a white area and I needed that, not even advantage, I just needed a good education, which unfortunately state school education at the moment doesn't provide an equal and fair education or a fair opportunity. And often overachievers are completely overlooked, because it's like, oh, they're fine, they don't need support because they're already achieving. I'll focus on the people that don't have that, and then it's like, well, I'm not achieving my potential, I'm just achieving below average, which is not good enough. So I went to a private school, which, while the education was definitely worth it, the culture I was thrown into was a racist one. So I did face racism growing up. I do forgive those people now, because children are cruel, and it is born out of ignorance. It's completely born out of ignorance. I was bullied for being tall, because I was always taller than all the boys. I'm 5'10".
Oh wow, that is tall.
So I was always
tall women are winning, so don't ever feel that kind of way.
Exactly. I mean, so for me, my journey started when I moved to private school and I started being bullied, and then it was always an uphill battle of ignoring the bullies. And I do have to give my parents credit, because both my mum and my dad were, daily support, always affirming me and always supporting me and reminding me that I'm capable, that I'm strong, that I'm beautiful. And me and my sister were one of like 5 people of colour in the whole school. And I can't count my sister, because that's my sister. So there was like 4 other students that could relate to what I was going through, and we weren't in the same year, so we weren't friends or anything. And it was just, so it started in school. And then I would say, when I always dressed really quirky and different, because it was, I was trying to be different. I was trying to embrace the difference, because there was no way I was going to fit in. My hair looks like this, not blonde, it's not straight. My skin looks like this, and I don't look like what all the other girls look like. So I thought, I'm going to go the complete other way, and I'm just going to wear the brightest colours and the weirdest clothes. And I loved it. And I look back now and I definitely have some fashion regrets, but it's fine, because it was about me just projecting and being in everyone's face and being like, no, you have to notice me, you cannot ignore me. And then I moved to a studio school, which is a government funded, but like not privately run, but like I couldn't tell you the logistics of it, but it's supposed to be creative based. And then I don't know, I had the space and the opportunity to explore who I am outside of the identifiers that my bullies gave me. So like, because that's what I became. My identity kind of molded into the things I was bullied for. And so like I was the tall girl or the big girl or the black girl. Even though I'm mixed race, I was just considered black because,
of course,
because ignorance, hey, that's what we live with. And then exploring media more, and find, like, the internet had a massive influence, because everyone can find a community on the internet, everyone can find that group of people that they resonate with and are comfortable with or identify with. And I think that's what really helped me as I was exploring the internet and finding these models and these influences that were not what I grew up with, not the same white girl who's this big and this small with blonde hair and gets all the boys and da da da. And it's like I was exposed to people that were proud of themselves, and then I guess that kind of rubbed off. And again, I have to, you know, credit my parents, because they were there daily telling me how beautiful I am and reminding me of my capabilities and pushing me onwards.
Wow, that is incredible. Because as you were saying that, I have to ask you this question now, because this is what's come to mind. I wanted to ask, have pageants allowed you to find your individuality amongst all the markers you were given as a child? As we know, childhood is such a fundamental part of the human experience. And why I asked that is because I heard you talk about private school. Also, you were seen as a Black woman, yet you're mixed race. And then also the class issue, because you've come from one background, your parents couldn't afford it. Then you've gone to private school. So whilst you've benefited from that in some aspects, at the same time, you're going to have all these relationships and all these dilemmas going on. So have pageants helped you to find that individuality?
I think it's been a complete mixture of pageants, moving to London, and a mix of who I was before London and my pageants. So in a lot of ways, pageants have just helped amplify my voice and amplify the things that were already there. So I was already learning to love myself, and I was already learning to embrace the things that made me different. But then pageants just really solidified all of that. It was just like, oh, I can be this person. I can get up on stage and wear a bikini. I forgot to mention that in my first pageant, there was a bikini round, or a swimsuit round, and I was cacking it, because that was something that I had been told was the negative of, like, oh, my downfall's always been that I've had a bit of weight on me. And so to get up on that stage the way I was and wear a bikini for the first time ever, never worn a bikini before, first time wearing one was on stage, it like I said, it just affirmed those things. It just solidified them and made them real and validated the way I was feeling. And then from there, I've been able to really run with it and just realize that we are all people and we are all perfect in our imperfections.
Amen. I think to walk in a bikini is hard enough, I imagine, on a beach, because people are doing their own thing. People are going to judge, but they're not really going to massively take notice. But then to walk on a stage where you are the center of attention and people are judging you, I think that's powerful in itself. So even I have to say, well done, because would I walk in, you know, in my underwear? I probably would, but I think as a guy, I have less to worry about. I have less to care about. I'm not being judged for absolutely everything, you know.
Definitely.
So it's really interesting to hear that. And then as a plus size woman, and you and I have spoken about, I suppose, the discontent and the disgust to be even regarded as a plus size woman when there's different body shapes, there's different figures in society. What is it like for you? You've come to London, you've probably been exposed to so many different parts of British culture, Black culture, then to figure out you've got a new category, which is either curvy or plus size as well. And I know you want to conquer the modeling industry, you want to conquer the acting industry. You've got so many industries you want to conquer. So how are you going to do all of that? What is it like finding all these new labels when you've just left some labels behind?
That's an interesting way of putting it. I would say it's allowed me to find a community. So having this label plus size or curvy has allowed me to find a community of plus size and curvy women who wish to be regarded as anything but that. And that's the real like paradox of it. It's like, while I'm stuck with this label that I think is just a bit of a joke, because I'm the average size of the women in the UK. So how can plus size be average? It doesn't make sense. So it's like there's a huge disconnection there, but it has allowed me to find a community of women and further support each other and uplift each other and push each other in the industry. So it was this January. Oh my God, the time has just walked.
Time has flown.
It's weird. In January, I was a finalist for Simply Be's New Icon model search. So that was an amazing opportunity. But what I really took from that was the women that I was a finalist with. I still have a group chat with them. I still talk to them on a weekly basis. And, you know, when one of us is feeling down or feeling insecure or has low self-esteem, we just put something in the group chat and we're all straight away there, like a wall army of women, just like, you can do it, screaming at each other. Like, just, it's really nice having a cheering section. And I've really found that again with my sisters in All African Colours. We've really created a support network with each other, where we, every time we're doubting ourselves or, you know, stressed or overwhelmed with the work that we're doing for the heat, we can really rely on each other to uplift each other and keep us going. So yeah, while being faced with new labels is kind of messed up, because I'm not really a fan of labels, but they are kind of a human like instinct is to categorize. So being put into a new category just allowed me to further find communities and support systems. So bittersweet.
Oh yeah, I could imagine. And I think I study a lot into politics, and I looked at like the advent of identity politics, that it's emancipated a lot of people. It's allowed a lot of people to find their own paths, and now they know whether they can go left, right, straight, horizontal, vertical. You've been able to find that. What was it like when you came to London? Because you told me you grew up in Hastings, if I'm correct. So what was London like compared to Hastings? And just how important has London been for you finding that sense of identity?
I would say moving to London first of all was a massive, like, I like took a big deep breath. It was like, yeah, I can relax now.
But
because...
was it? I thought it would have been a deep breath from the dirty air compared to Hastings.
I mean, I was going to uni in the highest pollution area, but other than that, no, it was a relief, because when I was in Hastings, and please don't get me wrong, I absolutely love Hastings and I love the community there, but it is a small white English town, and it's a beautiful town with beautiful people, lots of creativity, but a lot of ignorance as well, which is to be expected in any small town in England. It's no one's fault. Possibly a failure of the education system, but that's another conversation. But moving to London was a big sigh of relief, because when I was in Hastings, I had to be a representative of women of colour, of plus size women, of 100 things. I had to be a representative for that, and that was something that my mum did teach me from young. It was like, you know, unfortunately, I have to be an advocate or representative or an ambassador for women of colour or Black women, because I was considered Black. And so being in an area where there's now lots of different cultures and lots of different races, I'm no longer like the sole ambassador for those things. And because that can be quite a lot of pressure. Like in my friendship group, I was one of the few people of colour in my friendship groups growing up and stuff, and when you get asked questions a lot,
they'll come to you.
Exactly, so I had to be really educated on racial issues and just socio-political issues surrounding race. And so yeah, like I said, moving to London just removed that, and I don't want to say remove that actually, because I am still an ambassador for all of those things. It's just that I am less bombarded with that pressure of it, because there's more women of colour or people of colour, and so it's almost like spread out the responsibility a little bit. But then I guess in the same breath, that's kind of part of why I am the way I am. and why I am so vocal about certain issues surrounding race is because I grew up in a white area, and because I had to be vocal from a very young age and educate my friends and peers and colleagues. So yeah, again, it was bittersweet moving to London. I miss the sea.
I can imagine, because in London, all we have is a sea of pollution. And
Yeah,
that's sometimes
there's
all
no,
I think about.
I really miss the horizon. There's no horizon here. I'll open my window, there's a building there.
Yeah, concrete jungle we live in London. I suppose if all the opportunities presented, sometimes you sacrifice the green sanity that you once had. So,
Yeah, but it's a good compromise. So
yeah, some people, I know a lot of people that want to move back to their areas whereas for me, I grew up in London for so long, I want to move to an area that's more quiet. But then when I've gone to the area, I'm like, what's there to do around here compared to London? So it depends on which one I'm willing to give up. I've heard you speak so much in your conversation, the conversation we've been having, about your parents. So it sounds like your parents are such an integral and a fundamental part of who you are. I'd love to know, and I'm sure everyone who's going to watch this wants to know a little bit more about your background. Where's mum from? Where's dad from? How have they influenced the Frankie Stewart that I'm fantastically speaking to now?
they had a great influence on me, and I was extremely fortunate that I have parents that are open-minded, and rather than teach me things, they taught me how to learn. So
Okay.
you know that I am so grateful for. It does sometimes bite them in the ass because I can be a bit of a big mouth sometimes, or chat back or whatever, but so my dad's from Northern Ireland, and he moved to England when he was 17. He grew up in Belfast.
Wow.
And my mum is she's Black British, so she's from England, but her parents are from Guyana, and I believe they came over in the Windrush. So
Okay.
it was,
Okay. So then how do you feel with that, I suppose, that relationship? Because you also said in school you were considered black. You know,
yes,
people didn't take into consideration that you were mixed race. And, you know, you had the issue of Meghan Markle. People were saying Meghan Markle was a representation for black people, right? But then
yes.
Meghan Markle has never openly said she was black. She's also always said she wants to be seen as mixed race. How do
Yeah.
you deal, I suppose, if that sort of, some people would call it an identity crisis, but I don't want to put words into your mouth. How do you deal with that dichotomy?
No, I could definitely call it an identity crisis. And, you know, I only really became, I don't want to say confident, because I've always been confident in my race, and that, like, being mixed race has never been an insecurity for me. It has been something I've struggled to explain to people, because people can be ignorant, but it's something that I've always been secure in. But having moved to London, and also some of the modules I was doing throughout uni did really tackle a lot of these identity politics that I myself was dealing with. So only recently I've decided I am mixed race, because I now understand there's a whole colorism issue as well. So for me to sit here and represent black women or black people is not fair, as I am aware that I do have a slight advantage being half white, and it's a completely different racial issue that we're dealing with. While we are subject to a lot of the same issues, most of the same issues, there are a lot of issues that I have to deal with that black people don't have to deal with, and there's a lot of issues that black people or dark-skinned people have to deal with that I don't have to deal with. So that's why I choose to identify as mixed race, because also I have got a multicultural background. You know, I'm close with my black side and I'm close with my white side. So I'm multicultural. I can't say I'm black because I haven't had a solely black experience. So yeah, this is why I go by, I say I'm mixed race, and every time I am asked to represent one side, I always represent the other, because I am both. I cannot separate those two. But no, I would say I really became secure in that when I moved to London and was studying at university, and I really did. It was the readings I was given, and while I was studying drama comedy, It's a theoretical course, or it was 50-50 theoretical, so those theoretical sides more lean into sociology and philosophy. And then that's when I was able to truly understand a lot of the politics of what I have to deal with. There was a lot of racism I've been subject to that I wasn't even aware I was subject to until years after. So it's a journey as well. Same with self-love. It's been a journey, understanding my identity. Yeah.
And now that you've become more reassured and realigned in that identity, I'm sure that manifests itself for you in a myriad of ways. And you speak so much about changing the world and changing the perceptions of which people have in that. So being plus size, from racism, and you and I spoke, you wanted to speak promptly about Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
And I want to hear your views and your opinions on how this year has been, because unfortunately we had the death of George Floyd. And then on top of that, compounded interest was, COVID was also happening. And then recently, even I wrote an article on Black History Month, because I felt Black History Month was a little bit underwhelming. And I felt like that because I felt like there was a racial fatigue that had happened earlier in the year. I felt like people don't really want to hear about race all the time. And then I'm sure you also saw with the Sainsbury's advert with the Black family. If you saw the thread of comments, the comments were absolutely wild. They were just wild. So I just want to know your views around Black Lives Matter and just your view around race and politics at this current time.
So for me, the whole Black Lives Matter movement was this year's momentum with the movement, because as I was saying to you earlier, I find it hysterical how short of a memory we as a society have. We seem to forget everything 2 minutes later, and it's really frustrating because the Black Lives Matter movement is not something that was born this year. It's not something that was born because of George Floyd's unfortunate passing, murder. It's been going on for like over a decade, and people are just, their memories are so short. And I remember in 2011 when those riots were going on, and I was only 11. I didn't understand really what was happening, just that it was scary. And now I'm able to understand. This year was the first time I went on a protest. I marched in August for Black Lives Matter outside the US Embassy, calling for justice for George Floyd and 100 other deaths, because that's really what it's about. It's not just about one person or one family. It's about the entire system that has been built off of the backs of people of colour for white people. So it's an old system, and I'm not saying that everyone today in society is racist, but whether they like it or not, there is going to be an element of that because we've been raised in a system that is inherently racist. So, and while a lot of people don't like to admit it, and while a lot of people like to believe that the UK is innocent of this, we are not. And just even when you look at, I could list off 100 statistics, but there's just no point because no one's listening. No one's listening. So this is why this year the momentum was a huge relief. And while it was extremely stressful, and it did affect my mental health a little bit because I was on the daily arguing with people on social media, I find it really difficult to scroll past a comment that is just allowed to be said with no argument and no like someone disputing it. I find that really difficult. And then I've got a lot of friends on Facebook and family. There were some family members that I had to confront from my white side that really misunderstood the movement and were preaching all lives matter, which is just, again, frustrating. It's like, yes, so I found the Black Lives Matter movement this year was a big step, but not a big enough step. And I completely hear what you're saying about the fatigue that, and I felt the fatigue myself because there was a point where I had to switch my phone off and I couldn't do it anymore. I don't want to be reminded every 2 minutes of the injustices that I am possibly privy to. And so it was difficult, but it was important. So that's why we do this. It's because it's important. We don't want to victimize ourselves, and yet we're seen as the victim constantly, or as people victimizing ourselves. Why would anyone do that? We're not marching for nothing. I didn't get a sore throat from screaming all day for nothing. It was because I was passionate about something that has been affecting me my entire life. From the moment I've been born to now, I've been affected by my race, which is just disgusting. Why? And so that's why I'm so passionate about change, is because I do feel I've faced so much adversity for so many different things that I want to change those things, and I believe that I can. And again, this is because my parents have really told me I can from a young age. My parents always said, if someone's got to do it, why can't it be you? So why can't it be me? And that's why I'm here today. This is why I'm wearing a sash and tiara, is because I'm using this platform to speak up for the things that really matter. And it's not all about looking pretty, and it's not all about the drama and the glamour. While that is an amazing aspect that you can gain a lot from, it's also about using the platform to speak up for issues that are really important.
And the issues you speak about, as I said, is you speak about racism, you speak about body positivity and the empowerment of women in general. Now, with the competition, I know you said you've been able to use the platform to speak about things that actually matter. With you, if you go on to win the competition, what would you like to do with that, that prize or whatever comes as a result of it? What would you like to do, and what could you envision for your future and the people around you that ultimately you will be inspiring?
So if I was to win this heat and I was to go on to the Miss England finals, I would just, again, it would be an amplification of my voice. It would just be a chance to step up and speak out when there are so many that are unable to do so or don't have the courage to do so. And so I've been fortunate enough to discover myself and find security in my identity at a young age, whereas there are so many that haven't, and there's so many young women that are struggling, and just women. There are so many women and girls that are struggling, and so to win this crown, or the title, would mean I could then speak again and more, and that's all it is. It's about vocalizing, and it's about persistence. And how I said earlier, like, oh, I wear the brightest colors to just make myself be seen. It's kind of like that. I'm wearing a sparkly thing and a shiny thing to be seen, to be heard. And so that's all it would be. It's another sparkly thing and shiny thing to get people's attention, and then move that attention to the things that matter. So I would continue speaking up about anti-racism. I would continue speaking up about the misrepresentation and underrepresentation of plus-size women. And I would continue speaking up for just feminism in general, and the empowerment of women in general. And then let's say theoretically I won the Miss England crown. Well, then that would then give me a world platform. I would go on to compete on a world stage, and then I would hope to make a social impact globally, because this is not just a British issue or a UK or England issue or Western issue. These are issues that are just international. Every single country is faced with racism, is faced with sexism or body shaming, and we're at a time of change right now in our society, and the changes are happening faster and quicker than ever before, and that's a lot to do with the access to information. So I believe it's all about education and improving education systems globally. So I would be able to support charities that are funding schooling in impoverished areas that can't access schools, or in areas where children are forced to work rather than go and be educated. And that's really the base of everything, is our education. If we're taught better, then we do better. So I think, and I could go on again about how it's an education system issue, really. Everything, our society is just a product of our education, which we've had a lack of. So yeah, I would just hope that having that platform and educating people is just the only way forward, because you know, I'm not a pacifist, but I'm definitely not for violence and aggression. I'm all for education, and I'm all for shouting as loud as you can to be heard. So this is what I'm here to do.
Evidently, with your titles and your socio-political awareness and your awareness of life in general, it seems that you shouted louder than a lot of people have ever been able to. And you and I didn't even realize when we spoke that we had gone to the same university, Goldsmith. So we give them a quick shout out. You said you studied, what was it, drama, comedy, and satire?
Drama, comedy, and satire. Yeah, I was
Perfect.
the first group to graduate that.
And you spoke about, in terms of comedy, so I was saying to you that I feel like people aren't allowed to make jokes anymore. But you made a very interesting point to me, and I'd love for you to explain to everyone that's going to watch this what your point was, because it made me really sit down and think.
So Sean had said, what do you think about being too politically correct, and do you find it difficult to produce comedy with political correctness today? And I answered no, and very quickly no, because I believe that if you are intelligent and truly funny, then you don't need to rely on politically incorrect jokes and making fun of minorities, because as I said before, why would you choose to put down an entire group of people when you can fall over and fart and it's just as funny? So, and that's not to say that farce isn't intelligent humour. That is to say that you can rely on other things for humour. Why would you choose to put down people and have the possibility of insulting an entire group of people? So, yeah, and that was something that we did speak about a lot on our course, because there are ways to make jokes about groups of people, because stereotypes do exist for a reason, but there's a way of doing it in an intelligent way that doesn't just immediately reinforce a stereotype or immediately or a negative stereotype. It's always negative. It doesn't need to be negative. You can find humor in a lot of other areas of life, and if your humor is solely relying on ripping into other people, then maybe you need to consider a different industry, because you're not using your brain.
And that genuinely made me think, because maybe it's based on my personality, but I find a lot of things funny that I perhaps shouldn't. And I feel like with comedy, comedy has changed in ways that not many of us could have envisioned. So it's great to hear that. It's great for me to hear a different perspective that makes me think differently. And I asked everybody this rhetorical question, right? If you had a magic wand and you could do anything in the world, what would you change and how would you do it differently?
I would change the education system. That is my short answer. I just think it is set up to fail most of us. It is built to fail most of us, and it is not built with our best interests in mind. It's not, it hasn't been created in a way that supports the creative industries. In fact, it actively undermines the creative industries, and it values academia over creativity, which, as we know, we are like left and right side of the brain. Not everyone is academic, not everyone is creative, and many are both. So it's like, why is academia valued over creativity when as a society we consume them both equally?
Absolutely.
So, and then also the structure in which we learn is very biased towards academia as well. The structure in which we are examined and tested is all biased again. And how can you have something that's so rigid for children when children are all unique and need nurturing in completely different ways? So yeah, I would start with the education system. I would put more funding into it so that the teachers are more motivated, smaller classrooms so that the classes are more focused.
That's the one thing I really agree with, and I'm sure you experienced it in a private school. It's a lot smaller, it's a lot more intense. People forget that in a classroom teaching 30 students, you lose children's attention. Private schools sometimes don't have classrooms of more than 10 or 15 at most.
Yeah, I was in a class of 15 for 5 years.
Yeah, I could just imagine that. It's so different. It's completely different. And
it's very focused, and then it becomes personal, because then your tutor has that attention to give you and tailor their learning towards how you're learning.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's that I could list 100 ways that we need to change the education system. It's outdated, and it's in dire need of an update and in dire need of funding. And honestly, there should not be a need for private schools. We should have an education system. In the UK in 2020, why do we have an education system that is failing so badly that parents are prepared to spend tens of thousands of pounds a year to put their children through school, when there's a school that should be not free, it's taxpayer money, we are paying for it? Why is it failing us?
Absolutely. And you don't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, you know? So I suppose
Exactly.
the fact we can break out, the fact you've been able to break out a lot of your markers, your identifiers, is testament to the upbringing that you've had, and testament to the individual that you are and the personality you've been able to cultivate. I think it would be absolutely fantastic if you went on to win, because I think there's so much that you would be able to do. What would be your final message to anybody out there? And what would be your message to people perhaps that aren't as confident and as assured in who they are right now?
I would say that to remind yourselves that everything is a journey. Life is a journey. We are constantly learning, constantly evolving, constantly open to new experiences, and to not be so hard on yourself, because most people are blinded by the media and blinded by the society that we've been forced into, especially social media. And just remember, trends fade, but you have to be stuck with you. So
Oh,
it's better to like who you are than like the
I like
trend,
that.
right?
I
So
really like that.
that's what I'd say. Embrace the things you love and make you happy, because self-love is selfish. It's about prioritizing you, because you, at the end of the day, you cannot help anyone else unless you love yourself. RuPaul says it best. So
I've never watched RuPaul's Drag Race, but everyone I know goes on about it. Is it people's guilty pleasure almost?
I'm not guilty about it. I love Drag Race. Oh, I'm a massive advocate for the LGBTQ plus community. I wish that I had more time to speak about it today, because like I said, I'm passionate about a lot of things. So this is another thing I'm passionate about. And well, Drag Race is one representation of drag, and it is arguably a mainstream representation of drag. It has been a representation of drag, which is more than we've had in the past decade anyway. So there's that to consider. If you're going to watch
Absolutely.
it, remember it's only one representation of drag, and there are many, many, many forms that drag can present itself in, and just have fun with it, enjoy it. That's what drag's about.
Frankie, I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I think there's going to be so much people are going to be able to take away. You're an inspiring young lady that's going to go on to do
So
things that I
much.
think you probably don't even realize you're going to be able to do. I think the world ultimately is your oyster. So I want to say thank you so much for joining me for this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure.
Most definitely. And if there's any way that we could all support you, we'll definitely love to be able to do that.
Oh, you can support me a couple of ways. I'll tell you now. I'll plug my stuff. So you can, there is a public vote at the moment for Miss England for my heat. So if you would like to vote for me, it's Miss AAC04, and I'll make you put it in the bio.
Yeah, send me, I was going to say, send me the link.
Or to text that to 6333, and so that is it does cost 50p a vote, but it all goes to the Miss World charity. And secondly, I'm doing a Beauty with a Purpose project and fundraising for Plan International, and to do so I am selling scrunchies, and they're all handmade and they're all from reclaimed materials, and even the elastic is eco-friendly and plastic free and 100% recyclable. So they're £3 a scrunchie, and just send me a message and I'll send you a scrunchie.
Wow, that's amazing. I'll definitely plug all of that in with my bio. So when people watch it, they're going to know how to support you. And watching this, they're going to learn a great deal. So I'm really thankful you've been able to join me.
No, I'm so grateful for being here, and just thanks for listening to me ramble for an hour.
No, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. So what I've got to do now is I've got to say thank you for joining me. And I'm looking forward to, your journey and where you go.
Amazing. Thank you,
Most
and have a good
definitely.
evening.
You too. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.